Good morning. Lord, if you want to come over and have a seat to my far left, if you would. Yeah, right there. You might have a seat. And that microphone's on. You can adjust it however you'd like. First thing I'm going to do, Ms. Lord, is swear you in. If you please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
I do.
Okay. And then for the record, can you please give us your first name and your last name and spell them for us?
Yeah, it's Tiffany Lord, Tiffany. Lord is Lord.
Right, thank you. Mr. Ringle.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Detective.
Good morning.
Detective, how are you currently employed?
I work for the University of Iowa as a detective/digital forensic investigator.
First, can you explain what a digital forensic investigator is?
Yeah, so in general what we do is we receive digital evidence, whether that's a phone, computer, tablet, anything that's digital, we receive it in our care. We preserve the data, so we'll usually take pictures of it, and then we'll get an image of that. An image is a working copy of that digital device, so we're not altering the evidence. And then we'll process that device, which makes it in a workable format that is easier for us to see or the investigator that we give the case to.
You said you're also a detective. Can you talk about your education and training that qualifies you for the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I have a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity from Champlain. I also have my certificate in digital forensics from the Des Moines Community Area College. I also have, I'm a part of IASIS, which is the International Association of Computer Investigative Specialists. And within that, I have my CFCE, which is a Certified Forensic Computer Examiner. I also have my Mobile Device Forensic Examiner certification, and also the Magnet Certified Forensic Examiner.
Can you talk about, you said that you work as a digital forensic investigator, you're obviously also working as a detective. What's your experience in law enforcement?
I've been in law enforcement since 2017, and in this position since the end of 2020.
And generally, can you talk about your duties?
Yeah, so I mainly work, my main role is digital forensic investigator. The only thing that I do investigation-wise from start to finish, which includes like search warrants and stuff, is the child exploitation cases. But as far as digital forensics go, we take any case.
Would you be able to put an estimate on how many such examinations or extractions you've done when it comes to your work as a digital forensic investigator?
Yeah, so I've done hundreds of examinations and then a couple dozen examination reports.
Any other relevant training or experience?
So I've attended NCFI, which is the National Computer Forensic Investigator course.
Oh, hold on one second. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, NCFI is the National Computer Forensics Institute, which is actually through the Secret Service. I've also attended some NW3C classes, which is the National White Collar Crime Center.
So you stated that you received different electronic devices for evaluation or examination. Can you explain that process a little bit? How do you receive electronic devices, and then what do you do with those devices?
Yeah, so we get devices in all various ways. Sometimes it comes straight from the search warrant. Sometimes they have it for a few days. Once we receive that device, if it is currently powered on, we take a picture of it, and then we put it on our imaging device that gets that working copy of it. If the device is powered off and we're not sure like what state it is in, then we have what's called a Faraday box that blocks any signals coming in or out, so it can't change the data while it's in there. And then once that extraction is complete, then we would then take a picture of that device.
What type of devices are you examining?
In this case, or in general?
Generally.
In general, all electronic devices. So it could be phones, tablets, computers, the Oculus VR sets, tablets.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to slow down just a little bit. Having just a little bit of trouble hearing your answers.
And I see my court reporter's nodding her head, so help her out as well.
All right. So turning specifically to cellular phones, what type of information may be of interest to a digital forensic investigator on a cellular phone?
Yeah, so in general, locations, media, conversations, whether that be call, text messages, anything within applications, health data, Google search history, or any browser history. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a number of different sources of information, and I'll walk through some of those that you just referenced here. Can you talk a little bit, and I think you have, but just to make it clear, with the cellular phone, how do you go about accessing that information?
So that varies. If we have the passcode, we can get different kind of extractions, I guess, off of devices. And so we have what is called a gray key, which is a device that images it for us. You plug the phone into it, and then it takes the image off of it. So you can have the passcode. We can also get devices without a passcode. It just varies on the device.
Okay, and you say that you're taking an image of the phone. What do you mean by an image?
So that is what I mentioned earlier. It's a working copy of the phone. So that way we aren't altering the actual evidence, and we can then take that copy of the image, or the image which is the copy, and put it into Magnet, Axiom, Celebrate. Those are different processes that then makes it viewable for the end user.
So if I understand correctly, you essentially take the phone and make a one-to-one copy of all the information on that phone.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a bit by bit on a phone, as it would be a computer. It does take all the data that is on there, but like if there's something that is deleted, can be permanently deleted, we're not going to be able to necessarily get that back. It just depends on the application. Every application is different how the data is stored.
So essentially, you're taking a copy of pretty much all the data on the phone. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then you're working with that copy.
Yes.
You mentioned Magnet Axiom. What is that?
Yeah, so that is a software that we then input our image into that breaks it down and makes it readable.
And Celebrate, is that similar?
Yes.
And so you're taking that copy that you've made of the information from the phone and you're putting it into these programs, and you said that that makes the information readable. Could you explain what that means?
Yeah, so when it takes the copy, it's all in a file system. So you have different file paths. And when you look at that, there's a lot of data there. And what this process does, it makes it where these are your Snapchat conversations, these are your messages, this is the Google browser. So it kind of breaks that down for you. So you can click on it and see, okay, well, what was searched and things like that.
So if I understand correctly, when you make that initial copy of the data, it's just a lot of essentially unsorted data that mirrors what's on the phone. Is that fairly accurate?
I mean, it is sorted within the file path, but no layperson is going to look at that and know where, okay, what do I click on to then find the images, or what file path do I click on, because it's, paths within paths.
I see. And so then with these programs, it's sorted out into specific either applications, messaging, communication, or a way that's, as you stated, more readable.
Yes.
So once you've taken that image and fed it into these programs, are you then working, at this point, you can work both with the original data, if you wanted to do that, and with the readouts or reports from these programs, is that correct?
Yes.
So once you've run the data through Magnet Axiom or Celebrate, what are you doing as an investigator at that point?
That varies. So with that, sometimes people just bring me the device and they just want it extracted, processed. I then can give it back to them for the investigator to then go through. Sometimes in certain cases they ask me to look through it, or if they found something, they ask me how this came about, where this came from, because I can explain it where they can't.
Okay, so you yourself, if you were asked to go ahead and investigate a phone, how does that work? Are you given information about the case that you then use to direct your search, or are you just going in and looking for what you believe to be items of interest?
Yeah, so usually they give me some information. If it is something that's based on a certain date, they'll give me that date that happened, the kind of case they have, what they are generally looking for on there. So if they're looking for, say it's a burglary and they want location data, they'll put that on there. So just the basics of the crime.
And I understand this is sort of a broad question, but there's certainly a lot of different types of information or data on a cellular phone, correct?
Yes.
And I think you had mentioned there's applications, there's various forms of communication. I think everyone's pretty familiar with the fact that you can take video, photographs, etc. What other type of information are you able to recover from a cellular phone?
Yeah, so it also records health data such as steps taken, distance that you walked. Also, pattern of life is a big thing, ownership of the device, and then, yeah, the Google search history, media, all of that.
Okay. A couple of things that you mentioned that I just want to make sure we have an understanding of. The first would be an application. What is an application?
Yeah, so it's a software that you download. So say from an Apple, it would be the Apple Play Store. Then Google would be the Google Play Store. So it's software that you download on your phone that serves a purpose or purposes.
And so what type of information, my guess is that this varies, but what type of information are you able to retrieve from an application?
Yeah, it definitely varies. Sometimes you get deleted stuff on there, but the main thing is time, date, stamp of when, say, something was sent or received, if it is a conversation or a search of some sort.
Would the type of information that you're able to obtain depend to some degree on the nature of the application itself?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Yeah, does it depend on the nature of the application?
Yes.
Could you just explain that?
Yeah, so say with Snapchat, it's a conversation, so you can see who the receiver is, who the sender is, what time that message was sent or received. And then let's say with a browser, it'll show what date and time that search term was searched. As far as deleted stuff, it varies on every application. Sometimes it's so encrypted, that application is, because each application has its own security within too, that sometimes when it's deleted, it's permanently gone and you can't recover it. Then other times it stores it in a different database.
You mentioned the concept of pattern of life. That's something that's important to you as an investigator. What does pattern of life mean?
So how they use their phone. With, say, browser history, you can see how often they use it. Do they use it every day? Is there a point in time that, something isn't searched, or is there a big gap in data that, normally would be there otherwise? You can kind of see if there's location data, where they go, and then the emails, what they log into, what sites they go to.
So essentially, historic data about the use of the phone over time.
Yes.
You said as a digital forensic investigator, sometimes you're able to obtain information that's been deleted. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, so again, with every application, it's different. And so with certain things, it puts it in the same database, just it'll mark it as this is deleted. Other times it puts it in more of what's called like a non-active part of that database. So if you were to take that database out and you put it in like a database viewer or something, you're not going to see that deleted data. But you can see it in the non-active part, which is mainly in what's called the binary, which is the 1 and 0s of that user partition, and then it'll pull that out that way.
Okay. And admittedly, that was a little bit confusing, at least for me. So I guess what I would like to understand is when you have something on your phone, you delete that information. It's gone, or it seems to be no longer accessible to the user. Sounds like you're stating that that's not necessarily the case, that data is completely gone, and instead that you as an investigator are able to access that?
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes it can be permanently deleted. So a good example, I guess, now with current phones, say you were to delete a photo, at least on an iPhone, it would normally go to your deleted folder for 30 days. You have the option to recover it, and you can still see it in that deleted folder. But once it's gone, sometimes it's permanently gone. But other times we can still get that data when we do a forensic exam. So it just varies.
So as a user of the phone, using your photo example, after we've passed that 30 days and it's been deleted, it's no longer accessible to you, but nonetheless, it may still exist in the data somewhere on the phone.
That is correct.
And is that until it's overwritten, or at what point is that no longer accessible?
It varies. Sometimes it will stay there for a certain period of time, whatever the software developers put in there. Other times, yes, it will stay in there until that data is overwritten with other conversations or whatever you are doing.
So we talked a little bit about the types of information that you're able to recover, the fact that at times you can recover deleted information. We've talked about pattern of life. I think you talked about health apps as a potential application, and the ability of those apps to record steps. Any other information on the phone that you can typically find or may be able to find related to location or movement data?
Well, if they're you can usually see location database, but that is only for a certain period of time. So there's the Apple routine, which is the most common, which is the most precise location. That's only on there for 7 days. But yeah, other than that, then Snapchat also shows location, but again, that also varies on if that is stored on the phone or not. But with a search warrant, you can also get that data sometimes.
And just to be clear, we're talking specifically about location data related to, or that you would be able to discover related to the data that's on an actual cell phone. Mm-hmm. Based on your training and experiences, you're understanding that there's other ways to determine the location of a cell phone that don't involve strictly the data on the phone?
Such as conversations, you can see if people are talking about where they are.
Cell tower locations and those types of things
Yeah,
as well?
you can get cell tower locations. I didn't do anything with that on this case. Someone else did, but yeah, for sure you can get what's called a geolocation search warrant, and that can then, basically location is always pinging off of towers. And so you can get locations that way.
And as you just stated, that's outside of the scope of what you did on this particular case.
Correct.
So I do want to turn now to this case specifically. Did you receive some electronic devices associated with this case for examination?
I did.
Do you recall which devices you received?
Yeah, so I received a HP computer. I received three iPhones that I was advised were Karina Cooper's, and then there was 6 iPhones that I was advised was Huston Dinkers.
And did you examine each of these devices?
I did.
Did you follow the protocol essentially that you outlined previously in examining these devices?
I did.
So that would involve connecting them, making a copy of the data, utilizing those programs that you referenced, and then working both with the raw data and the output of those programs.
I did.
Can you outline briefly what information you had when you began your examination?
Yeah, so I was only given that there was a shooting in Tama County and on the day of June 18th, 2021, around 4:30 a.m. And they just wanted to know if I could get a better extraction than what they got originally, and that's all I was told.
Okay. And with that information then generally, what type of information would you be looking for?
Yeah, so obviously with the shooting, you're going to be looking for guns. You'd also, to narrow down the scope a little bit, take it down to the time of the incident, see what was happening around then, which in this case would be prior to.
And it sounds like you received phones that belonged both to Karina Cooper and Huston Danker. So you understand that there was a shooting, you understood the date that this occurred, and it sounds like there was potential involvement of 2 separate parties. So were you looking for information related to, as you said, at or around the time of that shooting you're looking for information? What types of information are you looking for, especially considering that we're talking about 2 potential individuals being involved?
Yeah, so at the time, I did not know if there was any other involvement. I was not told anything besides Karina's name, that she was the wife of the deceased. So what I was just looking at is if anything stood out as far as like conversations, movements, any searches prior to pattern of life, like I mentioned before, just any sort of conversations.
Okay. And I'm not asking you to go into what you found, because we're going to go through that here in a moment. But ultimately, were you able to, when you examined these devices, find any information of evidentiary value?
I was.
On which devices did you find that information?
Yeah, so on the first iPhone 8 Plus that I was advised was Karina Cooper's. On the white iPhone 7, I was advised was Huston Dinkers, and on the iPhone 10, that I was also advised was Huston Dinkers.
And just generally, what types of information did you find that were of value?
Yeah, so there was Google searches, health data, Facebook, or not Facebook, but text messages, Snapchat conversations, and then pattern of life.
I want to talk to you a little bit. You talked about two separate phones. There's an iPhone 8 Plus that was determined to belong to Karina Cooper. I'll start with that phone. How were you able to determine, or were you able to determine by looking at the data and information on the phone that it belonged to Karina Cooper?
I was.
How were you able to do that?
Yeah, so there was a lot of usernames to different applications on there. Her email was also on there. It was also registered to her for her Apple account.
When you say it's registered to her, and I know you had referenced this previously when talking about the types of information you can find on a phone, what are you looking at that tells you who's registered the phone and essentially who owns that phone? What is that information that's on there?
Yeah, so when you have an iPhone, you typically would register it to like an iCloud account. In this case, hers was linked to an iCloud account. There's also other addresses, or email addresses that is, such as for her lasting impressions job that she had. And then there's also within the web browser different sites that she went to that you would log into, and those emails or usernames are also saved on that device.
You mentioned lasting impressions. Through the work that you did on this phone, were you able to make a determination about what that was?
It was a hairdressing company.
And the same question with regard to Huston Danker's iPhone 7. What were you able to find that made you believe that it belonged to Huston Danker?
Yeah, so similar to what I said with her, there was, on the web browser, there was usernames, emails associated that had his first and last name on there. It was also registered to an iCloud account.
So turning to these two phones, I guess I'll start with Karina's phone. You talked a little bit about the types of information that you were able to locate. Were you also able to find data or look at data that gave you some notion of her pattern of life or usage of the phone?
Yeah, so, yes.
So there's a lot of, well, I guess I want to ask you this with regard to these phones. You've talked a little bit about being able to locate or determine information about dates and times. That would include dates and times certain things were accessed or communications took place. How are you able to determine that those dates and times are accurate?
Yeah, so we always do validation. And on top of that validation, I always do more. So when I find a piece of evidence that I think is pertinent, you can actually take out that database, and then it has the date and timestamp also within that, and I use what's called this DB browser, which is just an interpretation of that string of numbers, which is the date and time, to see what it says to make sure that my software is actually interpreting that correctly too.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you to slow down just a little bit. You said the first thing you mentioned was validation, and then you said you do more than validation. Can you start by explaining what validation is?
Yeah, so there's different ways you can validate. One of that is you take a phone that you know dates and times on, what is going on, and you image that phone. Then you process it to verify, do those date and time stamps line up with what you know is on that phone. Secondly, with what I talked about with the databases, what I do is I can extract that database, that, you know, whatever it is that is in that, and then within that, there's different tables, and they'll have like a date and time stamp within that, which is a string of numbers. And so if you use another software that then interprets that data, it can see if that matches what your process says.
And that's those processes then you utilize with regard to both phones in this case, Huston Danker's phone and Karina Cooper's phone, to validate and assure that the dates and times that you've included or found were correct.
Yes.
All right. Just so the jury has an understanding of the amount of information that you're able to locate on a phone, how much information did you locate or how much data did you locate on Karina Cooper's iPhone Plus?
Are you asking how much data was on the phone?
Yes, either in terms of gigs, length of report. How would you explain how much information you're able to pull off that phone?
I don't recall the exact gigabytes the phones were, but I can tell you there's millions of different data points within the phone that you can look through.
And that would be the same for Huston Danker's iPhone 7?
Yes.
Considering all the different types of information you said you were able to locate, the amount of raw data, sounds like that's a lot of information. In order to present the information that you found, did you create a summary or a report?
I did.
And the summary that you created, was that based on the information that was found on these phones, pulled from either the raw data, the Celebrite report, or the Magnet report?
It was.
Would it aid your testimony in discussing the information that you found to use the demonstrative exhibit that you prepared?
Yes.
And before we get into that demonstrative exhibit, how did you, first of all, what types of information did you find, and then how did you organize the information that you're presenting?
Yeah, so I said earlier there were text messages located, health data, Snapchats, search history, and how I did it was I organized it more by date and time. So you'll see the stuff that was earlier first onto when the incident occurred.
All right. And Judge, if we could get the screen turned on.
Just so we're clear, you want to turn on the screen for a demonstrative exhibit to show the jury.
Correct.
And I just want to make sure that this is okay. Does Ms. Watt, have you had a chance to see this?
We have.
And you're okay with this?
Yes.
All right, then we will go forward.
Just do it at the end. And Judge, at this time, the state,
Hold on.
all right,
Gotta try it again. Get the big screen up. And I'm sorry, Mr. Ringle, you were starting to say something. At this time, the state was going to do something, and then I cut you off.
that's all right. The state would move to admit this as State's Exhibit number 306.
Well, then it's not really a demonstrative exhibit.
That's correct. I'm asking now if the state, as I said, the state's now moving to admit it as an exhibit.
Ms. Watt?
I hadn't contemplated that. I thought it was only a demonstrative. Could I just have some, I mean, we can go through this and I can just think about whether I have any position on that.
Sure. I don't know that we need to cross that bridge this second. So I'll give you a little bit of time. Go ahead, Mr. Ringle. I'll make a note to circle back.
Thank you, Judge. All right, what are we seeing in this image here?
Yeah, so this is the iPhone 8 Plus that I received that was in possession of Karina Cooper at the time of the incident.
And then this next image?
Yes, the left image there is what I was advised was Huston Danker's iPhone 7, and on the right is the iPhone 10.
And the first image that we saw of the iPhone 8 and then here the iPhone 7, are those the two phones respectively that you examined in this case and found relevant information on?
Yes.
All right. So we're starting here. This looks like it says an Apple iMessage. What is an Apple iMessage?
Yeah, so an Apple iMessage is what's your SMS message? Basically is what is integrated in the phone when you receive it to be able to text other people back and forth.
All right. And what are we seeing here in this image?
Yeah, so this is a message from the iPhone 8 Plus to this contact that was called Wind Up Jake.
So it's the Apple phone belonging to Karina Cooper. It's communication with someone named Wind Up Jake based on the information you located. When did this communication take place?
Yeah, October 6th, 2020.
And what did you find of relevance in this communication?
So it was a conversation between the two of them where Wind Up Jake found, or actually someone else, Diane, found a check of life insurance company, called them. It was an accidental death policy on him that he didn't know that she had, his wife that was. And so then the message that was from the iPhone 8 Plus was maybe she was mad at you and saw an opportunity.
And as an investigator, why did you believe this was important?
Yeah, based on, well, if you know someone that has a life insurance policy and that you can get the money from it, that's always a possibility.
What are we seeing in this next image here?
So these are different screenshots that were located on the iPhone 8 Plus. As you can see over here on the left, the account creation, the account name was Karina Cooper with the value is actually the password of Hair Lady 1977. It shows that it was created on November 7th of 2020, and it shows last visited on the regular browser in December 17th of 2020. So these two pictures are very similar. As you can tell, they're not exactly the same. They're screenshots taken at different dates and times. The image on the left is November 8th, 2020. And if you look at the top, you can see that it does not say private next to it. And the image on the right is from November 19th, 2020. That does say private. So that's actually from the private browser.
A few different things I want to ask you about there. So the first thing, this information was located on the phone belonging to Karina Cooper.
Yes.
And under account creation, what's your understanding of what that information means?
So that's when you would set up that account.
And the account was through who or what website?
Yeah, huntered.com.
And the information you were able to determine was the account holder was the name Karina Cooper?
Yes.
And you said the value is...
That's the password.
So that password, as far as you understand, was required to access this information?
Yes.
Where on the phone did you locate these two Hunter Ed images? I'll start with the first one you said that was not marked private.
Yeah, so both of these were actually screenshots located in the database. So it was in the photo data database. They're actually both thumbnails of the original image.
And can you explain then what is the difference between the image that's not marked private and the one that's marked private? You made a distinction between a private browser and, I guess, a non-private browser.
Yeah, so in a private browser, it's meant to be, as it states, private. What you search in that does not keep web history, so once you close it out, that web history is gone.
And as an investigator, what did you find to be of import with regard to these images?
Yeah, it talks about, as you can see here, common types of handgun bullets, and it talks about each bullet and what it is good for.
What do you mean, what it's good for?
How it's used, so as it says with the first one there, it has a good penetration, little expansion, so each bullet serves a different purpose.
Did you find the other thing I guess I wanted to ask you is you said these were screenshots and you're distinguishing that from what?
What would be called a web cache. A web cache is, how it does is when you're on a website and you're scrolling, it kind of takes its own images of that to kind of help the browser load faster. Those are different. That's not user interaction. That is what the phone is doing behind the scenes. This, a user would have had to take that screenshot.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, then the user would have had to manually capture these images and save them?
Yes.
Did you find any other similar images from this Hunter Ed website?
I did.
What are we seeing here?
Yeah, so there was a total of 89 that I located, and it was between the dates of November 8th, 2020 and November 19th, 2020. Here on the left, you can see that there's 23 screenshots that were taken on or before November 11th, 2020 in the regular browser. And then starting on November 18th, 2020, there were 66 screenshots taken, and those were all in the private browser. What I have here underneath shows the timestamp of when that was taken, that was located on the photo, and that also matches what the report said the screenshot was taken.
And did you review the majority, if not all, of these types of images from the Hunter Ed website?
I did.
And what generally was the nature of the information contained in those screenshots that were saved on Karina Cooper's phone?
It was all about guns, whether it be rifle, handgun, how to use them, how to keep them clean, also protection, and then the bullets.
When you say the bullets, I think you already referenced which bullets could be used for different things, including which ones had penetration. Did that include the basic parts of bullets, shell casings, that type of thing?
It did.
And this information here on the screenshot on the left, what is that imparting there below the image?
Yeah, this is talking about the maximum projectile and saying that it could cause injury or damage to persons, animals, or objects. And so knowing your firearm's maximum projectile range is critical, being safe and responsible hunter.
Does it also say it helps you determine whether or not you can make a clean kill?
Yes, it does.
So beyond, as we all know, the data, using your phone to search the internet, et cetera, of course, you can also make calls and send text messages, correct?
Yes.
All right. Were you able to determine by looking at the phones, the phone numbers associated with Karina Cooper and Huston Danker's phones?
I was.
All right. What are we seeing here?
So the gray is going to be what is coming from Karina Cooper's phone, and so that is her phone number, and then the blue will be Huston Danker, and that is his phone number. And this actually comes from his iPhone 7.
And you said you have them gray and blue. That's just for your demonstrative, correct?
Correct.
To distinguish between the two. Were you able to find text messages or communications between these two parties?
I was.
And so what is that icon or image that we're seeing in the top right?
Yeah, so that is just what the image looks like on your phone as the application,
And that application is,
the iMessage.
okay, so this is just standard Apple iMessage.
Yes.
So generally, what is the nature of this conversation based on your review of it?
That there is a sexual relationship between the two of them.
Okay. And this conversation that we're about to look at, what were they discussing, if you recall?
I don't recall exactly what this conversation's about without reading it.
Okay. So this is blue. Is that indicating that this was a communication that was from Huston Danker?
Yes.
Okay. What was this communication?
Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay. Shit happens every day. Phones are replaceable. Hope the kids are enjoying the flying and the racing around of airports. I love you, baby. Have another safe flight. Have been waiting to hear from you.
And were you able to determine when this was sent?
Yes, I was.
When was that?
It was February 13th, 2021. So this is, yeah, okay. So this is from Karina's cell phone. It says, fucking hate him.
And that's approximately 4 minutes later.
Yes. And then, yeah, this is from Huston Danker's phone. Day one, identification, truly starting, and 2 kids have already been treated like trash and cried. It makes my blood boil. Shit happens every day. No reason to make somebody cry over it or yell about it.
Did this appear to be a conversation then between the two parties based on the timestamps you located?
Yes.
This was approximately 2 minutes later.
Yes.
And this would be a communication that was sent from Karina Cooper in response?
Yes.
All right. And what's that communication?
I just keep imagining us traveling together and how much different and fun it would be. And this is from Huston Danker's phone. We'd be having a blast with every single situation. Whether Cade lost his phone, Keeble forgot his tablet, whatever the situation may be, still would be having a blast. I mean, come on, it's vacation. Lighten the fuck up. Shit can be handled when you get back home. But that's just me. This is again him. Cade could have just had my phone the whole time. He didn't have one. And her response was, yep. Again, this goes back to Huston. Wouldn't have fazed me a bit. Here you go, wild man. Not like I'd have anybody to talk to. You. Your mom's here with me.
And there's some emojis there as well, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what emojis are those?
There was a broken heart earlier. This one is a heart.
Is this part of the information that you used, in determining the nature of the relationship between the parties?
Yes. So this is again from Huston Danker's phone. Can't wait to travel with you and just laugh and smile and have a complete blast with whatever we are doing or whatever we are going with another heart.
And then this was sent by Karina Cooper, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, and what's that message?
Listen to the background of the video I'm about to send. Shows you the difference between people like us and people like him.
Okay. Were you able to locate then additional communications on an application called Snapchat?
I was.
Can you explain what Snapchat is and how it works?
Yeah, so I think the next slide actually says too. It's more of a discrete text messaging application. So you can use it to talk to somebody. It's a mobile app used for instant communication on your phone. So when you take a photo or a video, or you can send and receive just regular text messages through it. Also, it is user controlled, so it can be set to delete right after the message is sent. It can be set for 24 hours, and you can also even save the message within the chat.
Is that essentially one of the primary features of Snapchat, is that essentially I see the icon as a ghost, that the information can be instantly deleted, or people believe that it can be deleted and removed from the phone?
Yes.
You located Snapchat communications. Where did you locate those communications?
So these are actually in what's called it's carved from Axiom. So what it does is it can parse or carve information. And so the carving of that is typically a deleted data that's no longer there. This was still stored as in the non-active part of the database that Snapchat would be in.
Okay, so when you say it's in a non-active part, the communications that you located of relevance were essentially in a deleted folder?
In a way, yes.
Okay. All right, you had indicated before that you had separated these out by date and time. That first date is March 8th, 2021?
Yes.
All right, and this just shows us a little bit of the format that you've used here. What are these red X's that we're seeing on the left of the screen?
It shows they're deleted.
Okay. And there's some brackets on the right side that are linking these bubbles that show times as well. What are those?
That is the time between the different chats.
Okay. And you've indicated that Huston Danker's communications are red and Karina's are blue. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what is this first message that you located?
Yeah, so it reads, I just read this 10 times with a heart emoji, I swear, heart emoji, and just felt even harder for you, which I don't think I could have been any more crazy over you than I already was. That book is everything I've ever wanted to hear. You can do anything you want with those boys. You're their daddy. Don't need mom's permission. Cable wants to get back to wrestling. He loves it. He just got his ass kicked at a tournament and is scared to compete now. Just wants to go to practice. Doesn't want to lose. And you know what the sperm donor said to him after he got his ass handed to him? Not a fucking word other than, it happens. Not, let's go home and I'll show you how to get out of this move. Just, it happens. They need you so badly. Cade is your football and baseball kid. Kid can throw a damn ball. Heart emoji.
And who is this communication to?
It was to Huston Danker.
From Karina Cooper?
Yes.
And what date and time?
Yeah, so it's on March 8th, 2021 at 7:03 in the morning.
And I'll ask you to try to slow down just a little bit if you could.
Okay.
So there's an additional message at 34 seconds later?
Yes.
What was that?
Good morning, baby. You would have woke up to your horny wife's hand wrapped around your dick this morning, just so you know.
And 39 seconds later, what was that message?
Here's hoping for a rogue semi today. Big accident, no survivors.
And again, that message was from Karina Cooper to Huston Danker.
Yes.
So Karina's the one that sent that message?
Yes.
All right. Now this is a message from Huston, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And this is on that same date, March 8th?
Yes.
What was that message?
And you aren't a fucking loser. Look at all the fucking work you been putting into us. My God. Plus, with the me working out thing, the boys need a father that's in shape to lift with them, run with them, be able to push them. So Cable doesn't have to worry about losing another match. Cade can be a complete fucking animal on the football field. Both just strong little men that nobody will fuck with. And nobody will ever fuck with their little sisters after they see them studs roaming around. Really don't want Cable to ever have to have that feeling again, ever, in his life of defeat. Have thought about that ever since you told me that. Can't let our kids ever feel like that. Can never make them feel like they lost. Even if they did, pick them up. Show them the positives of the situation and work on shit for next time. Everything in life is a learning curve, not defeat. Them kids will understand that as their dad's on their ass for getting down on themselves ever.
And then this is an additional message about an hour later from Karina, correct?
Yes.
And what was that message?
Breeze blowing the curtains, listening to thunder. Ugh, I don't want to wait another summer.
And we've heard testimony previously that Ryan was killed on in June of 2021. These messages are again approximately 3 months prior to that. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. You located some additional messages on March 12th. This first message is from Karina Cooper. What is that message?
I read somewhere that even if the surgery doesn't work, you can still do IVF.
And an additional message 23 seconds later.
Might be pregnant this time next year.
And Huston Danker's response.
IVF, question mark. Would love for you to be pregnant this time next year. I would love babies in my slow season so I can be around to help and spend time with you and the baby as much as possible.
And Karina's response.
In vitro fertilization, they implant your sperm and my egg, not the old-fashioned way, but our baby. Option if the surgery doesn't work.
All right. Moving on to June 13th. So this is approximately 5 days before Ryan Cooper was killed, correct?
Yes.
All right. What's the first message?
Every time he's around.
And Huston's response.
Just explain that to me, please.
And then what's this message?
Nothing has happened since Florida, and if you think I forgot about you in the moment, like there was some big romantic moment, then, well, fuck you. Because you have turned me into giving him a fucking peck to get him out of the door instead of resisting and raising a fit and probably taking much more. You've taken that and made it into this huge deception and betrayal that you have continuously brought up and beaten me over several times. So let me ask you also, since we're being honest, why, if you love me so much and promise to spoil me rotten and put me above everything in your life, why is it so easy for you to belittle me? Turn your anger towards me. Pick fights with me over this same thing over and over again. And hurt me by making me feel like a piece of trash cheater. I mean, just curious. Find a fucking mirror, Huston, and take a good long look.
And what was the next message from Karina?
I'm fucking done with this conversation.
What was your understanding of this conversation?
It was a little confusing. At first, it really seemed like she was...
Objection, Your Honor, to any sort of interpretation and narration.
Sustained.
Moving on to the next series of messages. This is June 17th, correct?
Yes.
Again, the murder occurred on June 18th. First message from Huston.
Yep. Night, get tired of me working.
That was at 9:52 a.m., correct?
Yes. And looks great. In case you haven't noticed, I like to stay busy too. You'll have slower times. Winter will be really slow. Just be prepared for your wife to constantly be tearing something apart and redoing it.
Okay, again, so we're 1 day before the murder, and Karina is sending that message to Huston, referring to herself as his wife.
Yes.
Okay, what's the next message?
Not worried about that one bit. You got to see me in my underwear this morning, and I haven't gotten to see you.
And what's Karina's response?
Train wreck.
And Huston sent a message then at 10:54, again, the day before the murder. What was that message?
Going to sleep with my hand on your pussy very soon.
What was Karina's response?
Soaked just thinking of you. Will be downright embarrassing when I actually have you in person.
And Huston responded to that about 34 seconds later, correct?
Yes.
What was that response?
Why? I love how wet you get for me.
So moving on to June 18th, did you find additional Snapchat communications then between Huston Danker and Karina Cooper?
Yes.
All right. We've heard some testimony in this case already regarding what occurred on the morning of June 18th, and that Aaron Cooper was contacted at 4:30 a.m. by Karina Cooper. She stated that someone was in the house. What time is this first message that you found on June 18th?
At 3:31 in the morning.
And what was that message?
A heart emoji.
It says here he responded approximately 2 seconds later. What was that response?
Seriously, more than fucking life.
And Karina's response 8 seconds later.
Forever.
All right. And then Huston Danker's next message to Karina Cooper.
More than anything, okay, babe, phone's going down. Send me something after I leave your house, to then wait for me to open it. Deal?
Again, this is at 3:31, so this is approximately 1 hour before that call to Aaron Cooper. Did she respond to that message then 8 seconds later?
Yes.
What was that response?
Deal.
Okay, so she said deal at 3:37 a.m. on June 18th.
Yes.
Karina's next message, what was that?
Kissy emoji.
That was 3 seconds later,
Yes.
right after she said deal.
Yes.
15 seconds later, Huston Danker sent an additional message. What was the time of that message?
At 3:31:55 in the morning.
What message did he send to Karina Cooper?
Remember those casings. Fucking remember those. No ifs and or buts.
No ifs, ands, or buts?
Yes.
She responded 14 seconds later. What did she say?
Absolutely, 100%.
What was the date and time of that message?
Yeah, it was at June 18th, 2021 at 3:32 in the morning.
He responded 10 seconds later.
Yes.
What was that response?
Okay, phone's going down. I love you.
11 seconds later from Karina Cooper.
I love you too.
Huston's response 7 seconds later.
So much.
9 seconds later, Karina Cooper.
Forever.
And he responded 8 seconds later, correct?
Yes.
What did he say?
Okay, babe. Seriously, putting the phone down. Have to get this shit done. I love you.
And what was the date and time of that message?
June 18th, 2021 at 3:32:54 in the morning.
And Karina's response.
Go.
4 seconds later, she said, go.
Yes.
What was the time of that communication?
Yeah, it was June 18th, 2021 at 3:32:58 in the morning.
His response when she said, go.
It was an hour and 9 minutes, 4 seconds later. It says, yep, just woke up.
Okay. Were you able to find additional Snapchat messages belonging to Karina Cooper, not necessarily with Huston Danker, on her cellular device?
Yes.
Were all of those found in the deleted folder?
No.
What are we seeing here on this image?
There's approximately 2,400 snap messages on that phone, and only 61 of them were deleted, which includes the messages to and from Huston up into the night of the shooting.
All right, so of the 2,400 Snapchat messages, 61 total were in that deleted folder, and that includes the messages that we just saw.
Yes.
Were you able to find additional information relevant to your investigation from the phone associated with the night of the murder, which was June 18th, 2021?
Yes.
What are we seeing here in this image?
Yeah, on June 18th, 2021 at 4:13 in the morning, it showed there is a live photo that was watched. And then also that same morning at 4:18:22, it shows that there was 2 photos deleted.
All right. So talk to me first about at 4:13, it says watched live photo as you just discussed. What does that mean as an investigator when you see this information? What of relevance are you able to determine?
User interaction with the phone.
Okay. What do you mean by user interaction with the phone?
So when you watch something, it's showing that you are opening that photo or video, whatever it is, and actually viewing it.
So someone has to be manually manipulating or operating the phone.
Yes.
Okay. And at 4:13 a.m., somebody was watching a live photo on Karina Cooper's phone.
Yes.
And it looks like 5 minutes later, 2 photos were deleted. This is at 4:18 a.m.
Yes.
So again, that call to Aaron Cooper was 4:30 in the morning. This is 12 minutes prior to that. 2 photos are deleted. What does that mean? What information is of relevance when you see this?
It shows that these 2 photos are deleted, and then they're then put into that recently deleted folder. So it just shows, again, user interaction.
Okay, so it's that same user interaction or manipulation of the phone.
Yes.
Were you able to make any determination about the nature of these images?
Yeah, both of those images appear to be screenshots of a Snapchat image. Both of them had just kids in them.
There's some information here about Apple Health. Could you explain, as an investigator, what was important about this information?
Yeah, so with the Apple Health app, it automatically counts your steps, walking, running distances, so it shows movement.
Okay. Is that an app that, well, it says here Karina Cooper's Apple Health, so I'm assuming this was an application that was on Karina Cooper's phone?
Yes.
And what type of information are you able to obtain besides, you said steps, but are you able to obtain dates, times, what other information?
Yeah, so the date and time when you start moving and when you end moving.
And based on your training and experience, can you explain when does the phone record movement versus times when it doesn't record movement?
So when you're actively walking around is when it starts recording the movement, and it doesn't show the end time until that movement stops. So it has to be a constant movement.
And an individual has to be in possession of the phone at the time, correct?
Yes.
What were you able to determine then from this application?
Yeah, it shows here on June 18th, 2021 at 4:23 in the morning, movement started, and then it ended at 4:33.
Okay, so 7 minutes prior to the call to Aaron Cooper, movement started, and it says it looks like that the duration in minutes there was
9.62.
Okay. You were able to determine both steps taken and distance. What were those steps and what was that distance?
Yeah, it shows the distance in meters as 120. If you translate that to feet, it goes to 393 feet, and then 170 steps taken.
Okay, so starting prior to that phone call to Aaron Cooper, a distance of 120.5 meters was covered.
Yes.
What are we seeing here?
So that is actually a blueprint of the house, and so the average size of a school bus is 45 feet. So you can see that the width of the house, so the perpendicular is actually smaller than if you put 2 buses perpendicular. That red X is where I was advised where Ryan was shot at.
What are we seeing here?
This is showing distance traveled. So as I said, the 170 steps, if you were to take the meters and turn it into feet, it actually turns into 393 feet. And so it's a little bigger than one football field.
Okay, so this image shows 100 yards of football field, 300 feet, and then an additional 30 plus yards, correct?
Yes.
Did you compare that then to the house itself and the size of the house?
Yes.
What were you able to determine?
That would have taken like 9.5 houses, basically.
Okay. Judge, may we have just one moment? You may.
outside the presence of the jury. We have counsel and Ms. Cooper present. We're going to make a record on at least one thing before we do. I think we had two sidebars. I'll just touch those briefly. The first one, I think Ms. Watt asked to approach related to an exhibit. I believe it was the large exhibit that contained the information from the Faro scan. Asked it to be down, and we took it down. And I guess just as a reminder to all parties, if you use an exhibit, once you're done with the exhibit, let's take it down, okay?
Just for the record, Judge, it was Exhibit 305.
Okay. And then, I think maybe Mr. Kodiaga asked to approach and that was just about scheduling, taking a break, and that was a non-issue. So before we go any further, either party have anything they want to add to that discussion?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right, then I think we were going to talk about what the state has offered as Exhibit 307. My understanding, Ms. Watt, I guess you asked for some time to think about whether you had an objection or not, and so do you?
Yes, I do have an objection to this exhibit. Would you like me to state why?
Yes.
Okay. I understand the purpose of a demonstrative is to assist the jury in understanding the expert witness's testimony, but I don't think it is a proper exhibit because it is not the actual evidence itself. It's her taking copies and pastes and creating this PowerPoint with some of the evidence, but it's incomplete. I'm objecting to the formatting, I guess, and there's another proposed exhibit in the court file, I believe it's 194, which is all of the Snapchats from Huston's iPhone, and there's a lot more than what's on this exhibit. And so I fear that giving them this exhibit, which is incomplete compared to the other records we have available, could be misleading.
So I guess, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I mean, I guess, if it's a completeness argument, the rule of completeness would allow you to supplement the exhibit. So, I mean,
Right.
So if that was an issue, you could offer State's Exhibit 194 or other exhibits and address that concern.
Yes, I understand that. I just think that the way that it's laid out here, I think it was appropriate for testimony and aiding the jury in understanding what she said, but the other things that are contained in this have not been.
Can I jump in?
No. The slides with the buses and the football and things, those are her interpretations of information that's in this case. We just don't believe that's proper evidence for the jury to have back as an exhibit as opposed to her testimony. And it's also, I mean, we could have it in the Snapchat exhibits. That would be the actual evidence that could be established with the foundation and the chain of custody, rather than cherry picking some information and giving the jury a packet of that they think is the best.
All right. Mr. Ringle?
Judge, thank you. With regard to the information that's been provided, of course, this comes in a form or format that's not necessarily easily readable or understandable to everyone in terms of completeness. Of course, there's an entire dump of the phone that's several gigs. What she's done and what her testimony was, and I think I agree with defense with the exception of the slides related to the buses and the football field. She's testified that the remainder of the information is directly ported over from the Celebrite report itself. It's simply put in a format that's easier to understand and read. So from the state's perspective, the question isn't really about the formatting. The question is about the content and whether that content is appropriate to be admitted in this case. The content is exactly the same as the Celebrite report, which is not objectionable from the state's perspective, and the foundation has been laid to admit that information. So the state's simply asking to admit this information in a format that's more readable and understandable. It's not an interpretation in any way. It's simply the information that she located.
I mean, I think if I understand correctly, primary objection was, again, we had the football field with the houses. I mean, that didn't come from Celebrite.
And that's what I had said, Judge. I said with the exception of those two slides, which for the state's exhibit, I think the state's intent would be to remove those two slides. It's the slide with the school buses in the house.
All right, well, let me stop you there. I don't want to have an issue where there may not be an issue. Would that satisfy the defendant if those two slides were removed and then it was, anyway, would that address the issue, I guess, from your end? I don't want to pressure you. I'm not trying to pressure you. I'm just asking.
I just have a general problem with a witness's PowerPoint presentation going in as evidence for the jury, but it's better without those couple slides.
Okay. Better to the extent there's not an objection, or better that there still is an objection?
I'll keep my objection.
All right. Well, so where we stand is the state's offer to take those 2 slides out. Defendant still objects. I guess the luxury I have, considering the current posture of this case and where we're at, is that I don't have to, unlike most objections, make an immediate decision. So I'm not going to. I will think about it a little bit. I have that luxury of time. I mean, the jury's already seen it. It doesn't impede the state's presentation of its case at this point. Again, I have a note. I will circle back to 307 at a later time. Anything either party wants to say about that?
Judge, I'm sorry, I would just note that this is State's Exhibit 306.
306. All right, sorry then, 306. Anything else on the defendant's end?
No, Your Honor.
Anything else we need to take up before we get started with the jury?
I don't believe so, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Then I guess we're a few minutes early, but as long as we've got everybody and they're ready to go, let's go. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a good lunch. So we're back on the record. We have our jury, we have counsel and parties present, and we have Detective Lars still on the stand. And ma'am, I would just remind you that even though we took a break, you're still under oath, and believe we were still engaged in direct examination. So Mr. Ringle, whenever you're ready, you may resume.
Judge, thank you. And we were proceeding through the demonstrative exhibit that had been prepared by Detective Lord. I would ask that we turn the screen back on and perhaps lower the lights. Detective Lord, welcome back. You had stated that you found some information on Karina Cooper's device that was part of an Apple Health app and indicated some steps and movement. Did you look for similar information or data on Huston Danker's phone?
I did.
And is that part of the exhibit that you've prepared today?
Yes, it is.
What information were you able to locate?
So on here, the same as on Karina's phone, you have the start date and time, end date and time, the duration of that distance, and steps taken.
And so specifically then on the night of the murder, were you able to determine whether Huston Danker's phone was recording the steps?
I was.
And what information did you locate, I guess starting with 6/18/2021, which looks like the second line down on what you've prepared here?
Yeah, so on 6/18/2021, it shows that there is movement between 2:43 a.m., 2:51 p.m., and then it jumps to 3:13 a.m. to 3:23 a.m., which then continues on from 3:23 a.m. to 3:26 a.m. And then there's a gap of no movement until 4:46 a.m.
So with regard to that movement at 3:13 a.m., what was the distance of movement that you noted there?
Are you asking total between 3:13 and 4:46?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you. Could you pull your microphone a little bit?
Yeah, what did you ask? Sorry.
I'm asking, you said that there was movement there between 3:13 a.m. and 3:23 a.m. What was the distance of movement that you noted there?
Yeah, so the distance there was 159 meters.
Okay. And then there was further movement then between 3:23 and 3:26. What did you note there?
Yeah, the distance there was 37.28 meters.
And then you indicated there was a gap. Could you just explain what you were talking about?
Yeah, the phone showed just no movement between 3:26 a.m. and 4:46 a.m.
And you had testified previously that there was Snapchat messages between the parties indicating something to the extent of phones down, is that correct?
Yes.
And if an individual was not in possession of their phone, not carrying their phone, would it be recording steps, or could that account for the gap we see here?
Yeah, they would not record steps if their phone was put down.
With the information that you located and the other information that you received as an investigator, did you attempt to put together a timeline from the night of the murder?
I did.
All right, I'm showing you the exhibit that you've prepared. Looks like it is animating. What is the first line on your exhibit that you've prepared?
Yeah, so between 3:31 and 3:32:58, that's when that Snapchat conversation took place between Karina's phone and Huston's phone.
All right, and that's the Snapchat conversation. All right, so that was the Snapchat conversation that we saw where Ms. Cooper said go, and then they talked about putting their phones down.
That is correct.
Right. That conversation ended at 3:32:58, and what was the next event that you noted in your timeline?
Yeah, that is at 4:13 when that live photo was viewed.
And that was on Karina Cooper's phone, correct?
Yes.
And what did you note next?
At 4:18 in the morning, there was 2 deleted photos.
And the next activity you noted on the phone that you included in your timeline?
Those were the steps taken between 4:23 and 4:33 a.m.
We'd heard previous testimony that Karina Cooper called Aaron Cooper at 4:30 a.m. Were you able to verify that information by examining the phone?
I was.
And how did you verify that information?
Yeah, so at 4:30, that is when the call came out from Karina's phone to Aaron Cooper. That is also located on the U.S. cellular records.
All right, so then the next thing you noted here, you have 3 separate entries. What are those? At 4:31, again at 4:31 and 4:33.
Yeah, those are calls from Aaron Cooper to Karina Cooper.
And the length of those phone calls then, and this is looks to be more or less immediately following the phone call to Aaron Cooper, 1 second unanswered and 23 seconds?
Yes.
And then what's this next piece of information at 4:33:43?
Yeah, that is when Karina Cooper's cell phone called 911.
And what's this that we see at 4:34:44?
That's when Aaron Cooper called 911.
And at 4:39 a.m.?
That's when Aaron Cooper arrived at the address of 1846 K Ave.
All right. And 4:42 a.m.?
That is when the first deputy arrived at that address. Did you do some additional work then to look at Huston Danker's search history on his iPhone 7? I did.
Showing you the next slide, it looks like we have an icon here for Google. It says Google search history. Could you explain what you were looking for and how you completed that search?
Yeah, so for on the phones, I narrowed it down to the time that the incident occurred, and I located some search history. And then after that, I got rid of the timeline, and it located some other history that was also around the same time that doesn't necessarily have a timestamp.
And it may be fairly obvious to some people, but perhaps not everyone. Can you explain what a Google search history is?
Yeah, so what a Google search history is basically an index of a whole bunch of different sites. So when you go to search something, it tries to pull what it thinks you are searching for, the most accurate thing.
And again, perhaps fairly obvious, but these searches are completed typically manually or input by a user, is that correct?
Yes.
And you've just included the results of that search that you did in attempting to locate the searches that Huston Danker had completed here on this next slide.
Yes.
What is the, if you could just go through a couple of the results that you found.
Yeah, how to kill somebody with antifreeze. Best way to kill somebody with no way for anybody to find out who did it. How to save snaps without them knowing. And then the SS on here is how to screenshot on Snap without them knowing 2021. And that was searched on February 16th, 2021.
And some additional history that you located.
So this was on May 11th, 2021 at 9:20 p.m. Is sodium sulfate, is it deadly? This is on May 22nd, 2021 at 8:32 p.m. That might sound strong, but diphenol versus bromethylene. This is the same date and time, a little bit later, at diphenol, does it kill humans? Again, on May 22nd, this is now at 9:17 p.m., the black market. This is 6/18/2021 at 5 p.m. Old open Snapchats be found again after being seen in the state of Iowa.
And what's the date of that particular search?
Yeah, that one is June 18th, 2021 at 5 p.m.
And so again, that's the date of Ryan's death, correct?
Yes. This is again on June 18th at 6:17 p.m. Are Snapchats encrypted? This one's on July 1st, 2021 at 10:26 p.m. Where do murderers go to prison? This is July 2nd, 2021 at 10:29 p.m. Minimum security prisons in Iowa. This is again on July 2nd at 10:30 p.m. High security prisons.
I'm going to move forward here to the next slide looks like, or excuse me, the next line on your slide is July 3rd. What does this one say?
How long does it take to go through data forensics?
And the 10th?
Leavenworth Prison.
And July 16th.
How to permanently delete Snapchat data.
So this is approximately 1 month after Ryan's death, is that correct?
Yes.
And now from November of 2021.
Does your Snapchat location turn off when you log out?
Did you find then some additional searches related to Snapchat and the functioning of Snapchat?
I did. Can messages be accidentally sent to somebody else on Snapchat? Can the feds pull Snapchats back up? Can data forensics retrieve old Snapchat conversations from an iPhone? Can old opened Snapchats be found again after being seen in the state of Iowa? Does Snapchat save every message and picture I send, even if opened? What is received with a search warrant sent to Snapchat? Can a state investigator read through old Snapchat conversations? Snapchat saved messages. Can data forensics pull Snapchats up? What is Snapchat able to give to feds? What kind of conversations can data forensics pull back up? Even after a snap is already opened, can you use data forensics to see what the Snapchat was? Can I recover photos I deleted from my recently deleted album? Will deleting your Snapchat delete the DATs, which is dates? What's Snapchat cache? Are Snapchat messages encrypted? If you delete your Snapchat, can data forensics pick up anything from it? If I deleted pictures from my iPhone, can I still bring them back? They have opened my Snapchat, but their last seen time hasn't updated or location. If you log out of your Snapchat and log back in, does it show your location in the same spot, but turn it off? If you shut your location off, does it keep you in the same spot for 8 hours on Snapchat? Is Snapchat messages encrypted?
Moving on to some additional search history that you located. You've separated these out, it looks like, into 4 separate segments. Did you find then Google searches related to poisoning?
I did. What is the best way to poison somebody quickly? Is chloroform traceable? Cyanide. Sodium cyanide. Diphenol. Where to find arsenic?
And moving on to the area that you've deemed killing or searches related to killing, what did you find?
Yeah, what's the best gun to use to kill somebody? How do people get caught for shooting? How to positively get away with murder? The best way to kill somebody with no evidence? How much does it pay to dig a grave?
There were a couple searches related to locating a lawyer. What's this final one marked to date?
Father's Day 2021.
Did you attempt to locate search history then for Karina Cooper?
I did.
See what appears to be the Safari icon. Can you explain what Safari is?
Yeah, that's the built-in search engine for iPhones.
And so this is information that you're taking from her iPhone that you referenced previously?
Yes.
Were you able to locate relevant search history for Karina Cooper?
I was, but not between these dates.
All right. So it says gap in Safari search history from February 13, 2021 to June 1st, 2021. What does that mean?
It means there was no search history between those dates. Like I mentioned before, the pattern of life, every day prior to February 13th, or almost every day, there was a search, if not lots of searches. And then on June 1st and after, there was also a search almost every single day or multiple searches a day.
So you're talking about the pattern of life or historical use of the phone that you referenced previously.
Yes.
And so the pattern of life that you determined, so I understand, is prior to February 13th of 2021, on her phone there were how many searches? Or what kinds of searches?
General searches for, I don't know, anything and everything. Nothing stands out in particular.
But again, the pattern that you noted in terms of frequency of Safari searches?
Yeah, there was multiple prior to.
And then following June 1st, that pattern resumed?
Yes.
Do you have an explanation for the gap in Safari search history, or what would account for what you're seeing there?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled, you can answer.
Yeah, so it could either be deleted or, as I mentioned earlier with the private Safari, if you use that, it doesn't keep track of your history.
I have no further questions for this witness. Thank you.
Ms. Watt, cross-examination?
Yes, is it possible to switch to my screen and let me just show you what I'm going to put up. If you want to.
All right, so you want me to publish something from your screen?
Yes.
And Mr. Ringle, you've seen it for the state. The state has no objection?
Currently, no, and based on the representation of counsel, I do not.
Okay. Let me know if something changes.
Is it Detective Lord?
Yes.
Okay, so Detective Lord, do you recognize the software I'm looking at here on the screen?
I do.
What is this?
This is actually Magna Axiom.
Is this, I think earlier in your testimony you described how you have software that can take all the data off the phone and allow you to more easily go through what's on the phone.
Yes.
So, can't see my mouth. So these would be examples of everything that's on this phone being iPhone 8 Plus. So do you recognize this as Karina's iPhone?
I do.
Okay. And so, like you said, there's a lot of different, what we're calling artifacts.
Yes.
Okay. So that each artifact is a piece of data that's on the phone.
Yes.
Okay. So the questions I have for you are just sort of related to what I have found using this software, obviously without your expertise. But you mentioned just recently about a search history. So we've got this Safari search history. And is this right here, is this showing us what you're talking about? We've got a visit here on February 13th and then nothing until June 1st.
Yes.
Okay. And are you able to tell us whether the person actively deleted that or just wasn't using it? Do you know how that happens?
I can't say.
Okay. And then you mentioned that previous to that, there was always a text, or, I'm sorry, not a text, a search regularly. But when I was, let's see, looking, so we're going to December of 2020, and we have a gap here as well, October 11th through December of 2020, right? Okay. So, I mean, there are other gaps on this phone. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, just not as big of gaps. And that's why I said, frequently, almost every day, not necessarily every day.
Okay. Right, because I mean, then here, obviously, again, shorter gaps. So here's another 5-day gap. About a month. Bottom line, there are other gaps.
Yes.
Okay. At I'm going to try. You can't, if you turn off the screen, then I can't see it. Do you have like a paper copy of your PowerPoint or anything? I can probably. So on here, we can, so we've got 2,400 Snapchats that we take from this phone. That's what this is telling us.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
What this screen is showing us is that on Karina's iPhone 8 Plus, there were 2,409 messages still somewhere in the phone's data.
Yes.
Okay. And then if we search, what am I searching? I'm searching on the wrong. 275. So then, I know that on your PowerPoint here, in your demonstrative, you did, under Huston Danker's name, you have a number associated with it underneath his name. Is that his, like, Snapchat ID or number associated with his messages?
Yeah, it's the user ID.
Okay. So then this is how we see on here, on the actual software, where the messages are, right?
Yes.
Okay. My question for you is, so we've got Snapchat messages here. Right here, we have Snapchat Biome App Intents. So what are these?
Those could be other deleted messages. It doesn't show you what the message is. So it just shows the phone that things are being sent out.
Okay. Just correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that a Biome App Intent is something that is generated on your phone anytime you send a Snapchat. Possibly. Okay. Because on all of these, as I'm sure you'll notice, it only says sent.
Yes.
Okay. Can you explain, I'll sort by date here. So clearly we can see there's a lot of other messages, but we just don't have content for them.
Correct.
Okay. What's that? Do you have any explanation or idea for how, I mean, obviously the phone knows that these messages are sent. Do you have any idea why we can't see the content of the messages?
I cannot. I didn't write the source for this application.
Okay, so that comes down to how Snapchat, how their software is written.
Yes.
Okay. But from this, at least for a given time frame that this phone was tracking, we have 876. Would you say it's safe to presume there were at least 876 messages going to Huston?
Yes.
Okay. And this doesn't tell us how many are being received without the content.
Correct.
Okay. Did you notice a similar pattern on Huston's iPhone 7, that we have some content, but then there's also lots of these app intents?
I don't recall.
Okay. I wanted to ask you as well, you mentioned that in your PowerPoint, you mentioned that these messages, at least I believe some of them, had been deleted. Can you just tell me where on all of this, how do you know that?
If you go back over to where it says carving, no, back to the right,
Okay.
it'll say, carving versus parsing.
Which one means what?
So the carving means that it is not in the database, it's in the not used part of the database versus the parsing. If you were to then pull out that database, you can actually see those messages within that.
Okay. So then I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. If it says parsing, it's not deleted?
Correct.
Okay. So I guess I don't know. Well, that's just the entire conversation table. Why does this show up as parsing? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, because the table still exists because that last message that was, was not deleted.
Okay. Another question for you. When I was looking at the messages here, each message appears to have a message ID. Can you tell me or us what that means or indicates?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Because at times they appear to be in some sort of sequential order, but you don't know.
No, and it could, no, I don't.
Okay. You found a lot of searches on Huston's phone, both before and after the event. Did you find similar messages on Karina's phone? Or not messages, I'm sorry, searches?
No.
Okay. You testified, I think I might be done with the screen for now, Your Honor. You testified at the beginning that you had an HP computer, 3 iPhones and for Karina and 6 iPhones for Huston Danker. Did you also get a watch?
I did.
Okay. And would that have been a watch that was being worn by Karina the night of the murder?
That's what I was told.
Okay. Were you able to get anything from that watch?
I was not.
So when you're talking about steps then, and saying that within a 10-minute interval, she's taking 170 steps. Is that generated? Do we know? Is it generated from the phone or from the watch?
Those are from the phone.
Okay. Oh, was the watch some sort of, like a smartwatch at least?
Yeah.
Okay. And then with regard to the steps, is it accurate to say that when your phone is tracking it, it's always doing it in 10-minute increments?
No.
Okay. I'm looking at, all right, so then does that mean, so tell me how the time starts and the time ends then, please explain that.
So when it detects movement is when it starts, and when it detects movement has stopped, then it stops.
Okay, so I suppose in the 10-minute interval we have here for Karina's phone, then the assumption would be that she starts moving at the first part of the timestamp.
Yes.
Okay. The wind-up Jake text message conversation, I assume you don't have any information who that person is?
I do not know.
Okay. Are we at all presuming that that's Huston Danker or no?
Not that I know of.
Okay. And then I saw we had screenshots of some sort of hunter education website. Am I correct that that website was last visited on December 17th of 2020?
That's what it stated.
Okay. Okay. And again, you're just producing the information that you find that you think could be relevant to the case. You don't have any other information about why these things might be on somebody's phone?
No, that's correct.
Correct, thank you. On your PowerPoint, you had some text messages, or I'm sorry, Snapchat messages that come from Houston's iPhone 7. Were those all of the messages between Huston and Karina from his phone?
I think on the first one, there was some other messages, if I'm recalling correctly, that were just small talk, but all of them have been put as the exhibit.
Which exhibit are you talking about when you say they've been put in the exhibit?
I provided the whole conversation in a PDF format.
Okay. I think you might have answered this, but do we have any answer as to why we have some messages in March, then a gap, then some messages in mid-June, then a gap on Snapchat?
I can't say.
Okay. You had in there that there were some deleted photos the morning of, and you said those are just pictures of children?
Yes, both of those photos appear to be screenshots from Snapchat that someone sent. And yeah, both of them were pictures of kids.
Okay. On the Axiom magnetic software, where do you find those pictures? Are they on that?
Yeah, so if you were to search the image name, you can locate them.
Okay. As for the live photo that was viewed, do you know what that was?
Yes, that photo was just a kid running towards the camera.
Okay. I want 194. May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
I want to bring this up there. Both the state exhibits, but I've also marked them defendants A and defendants B. Do you recognize these?
Yes, I do.
What are they?
These are the Snapchat conversations.
Do those, what's been marked as defendants A and defendants B, do they appear to be the reports you would have generated directly from the software?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move to enter into evidence what's been marked as defendants A and defendants B.
Since they were state's exhibits, I'm not anticipating an objection, but Mr. Ringle, any objection on behalf of the state?
That's correct, Your Honor, no objection.
All right, defendants exhibits A and B are admitted.
Okay. The one that I noticed in particular, and I can't put your PowerPoint back up right now, but do you remember the conversation about here's hoping for a rogue semi today? No, big accident, no survivors.
Yes.
Okay. And that was sent by Karina, March 8th, 2021 at 7:04 a.m. I'm reading from here, so,
Yeah.
okay. There was then a following message sent within that same minute from Karina. My mind is pretty fucking dark and twisted too, honey. Divorce me. Do you remember that message?
I don't recall that.
Okay. Well, she's talking about, well, I won't characterize it. Oh, on some of the messages on the PowerPoint, or not the messages, the Google searches, maybe you already answered this, but some didn't have dates or times. Is that because the phone didn't know, or how's that work?
I don't know. It's if the links are deleted too, sometimes time seems to go away, so.
If what gets deleted?
If the URL gets deleted, so whenever you start, it's deleted in history.
Okay. Is it fair to say then that what we have here in your PowerPoint and with the addition of these is pretty much the sum and substance of what you found on these phones that was relevant to this case?
Judge, I'm going to object. I don't believe this witness is in a position to testify to what's relevant in the case.
Okay.
Overruled, witness can answer.
That was everything that I presented in the PowerPoint is.
Okay. I was just making sure there wasn't something else that you thought that you would have thought was important that wasn't included.
Not there.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Mr. Ringle, redirect.
None, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, thank you. Detective Lord, you may step down.
I forgot to ask you if you want.